go. All right, ladies, we are continuing on in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous to employers, the bottom of page 143. All right. To return to the subject matter of this book, it contains full suggestions by which the employee may solve his problem. To you, some of the ideas which it contains are novel. Perhaps you are not quite in sympathy with the approach we suggest. By no means do we offer it as the last word on this subject, but so far as we are concerned, it has worked with us. After all, are you not looking for results rather than methods? Whether your employee likes it or not, he will learn the grim truth about alcoholism. That won't hurt him a bit, even though he does not go for this remedy. We suggest you draw the book to the attention of the doctor who is to attend your patient during treatment. If the book is read the moment the patient is able, while acutely depressed, realization of his condition may come to him. We hope the doctor will tell the patient the truth about his condition, whatever that happens to be. When the man is presented with this volume, it is best that no one tell him he must abide by its suggestions. The man must decide for himself. You are betting, of course, that your changed attitude plus the contents of this book will turn the trick. In some cases it will, and in others it may not. But we think that if you persevere, the percentage of successes will gratify you. As our work spreads and our numbers increase, we hope your employees may be put in personal contact with some of us. Meanwhile, we are sure a great deal can be accomplished by the use of the book alone. So we got to remember the time frame when this is written. It is written in the late 1930s when, EAP and workplace programs, treatment, all of these things that we have now at our fingertips were not quite as prevalent. Now our hopes would be that the employer would refer them to Alcoholics Anonymous or to a treatment center. So it wouldn't be an employer armed with the book trying to carry the message. However, if you are an employee in a position that you can put yourself to be helpful as an alcoholic who has recovered, you could play this role. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that as I was already an HR administrator. So I know there's people that are maybe in unions, or you may be in a business where a small business, and you could be that person that carries this message. But back then when this was written, there wasn't mass numbers of us. There wasn't central offices in every, jurisdiction that we could easily tap into. And that's not the case. Today, it's pretty easy to find Alcoholics Anonymous. You can sit in your own living room and zoom right in. And again, there's some really helpful tips on carrying this message sponsee to sponsor, or sponsor to sponsee, in those first two chapters. Anyone want to speak, share, or enhance this page?
Sure.
Hi, Gloria. Go ahead.
Hi, Annette. Annette is the name.
Oh, Annette. Okay, I'll change her so we call you the right. Go ahead.
Anyway, I like what we were reading, and makes sense to me. And I've had problems with that as well. And my boss still hasn't forgiven me for anything. I haven't gone back to that job since because I was fired. Throwing a helmet at somebody, I think that's a little drastic. But anyway, I'm enjoying sobriety, and I'm enjoying hearing you guys talk. It's really nice to be Zoom meetings. All you pretty ladies.
Thank you so much, Annette. All right. Anybody else on this page?
Suzanne, alcoholic.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Kimberly. I just wanted to say that while I was volunteering at the phone shifts, somebody phoned in that was very, 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 very low. And they pointed me to this page and they said, "This is great." And it makes sense to me because your ego is completely quashed. You're ready to listen. And I found it very cyclical around March, which is where my sobriety date lies. I would come to a low and then I would seek out help from a resource that it wouldn't work, but it came every year. And so finally I got so low that I reached out to AA and called the office. So that is a very important time in an alcoholic's life when they say, "I surrender, I need help." Get them then. So thank you.
Absolutely. These few pages in the two employers, so much good stuff with working with others, regardless of if you're an employee or not. It's so transferable. It's absolutely amazing. All right. Anybody other have the blue hands or wave at me? All right. We shall keep reading. On your employee's return, talk with him. Ask him if he thinks he has the answer. If he feels free to discuss his problems with you, if he knows you understand and will not be upset by anything he wishes to say, he will probably be off to a fast start. In this connection, you can remain undisturbed if the man proceeds to... In this connection, can you remain undisturbed if the man proceeds to tell you shocking things? He may, for example, reveal that he has padded his expense account, or that he has planned to take away your best customers from you. In fact, he may say almost anything if he has accepted our solution, which, as you know, demands rigorous honesty. Can you charge this off as you would a bank account and start fresh with him? If he owes you money, you may wish to make terms. If he speaks of his home situation, you can undoubtedly make some helpful suggestions. Can he talk frankly with you so long as he does not bear business tales or criticize his associates? With this kind of employee, such an attitude will command undying loyalty. The greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. Wherever men are gathered together in business, there will be rivalries and, arising out of these, a certain amount of office politics. Sometimes we alcoholics have an idea that people are trying to pull us down. Often this is not so at all, but sometimes our drinking will be used politically. One instance comes to mind in which a malicious individual was always making friendly little jokes about an alcoholic's drinking exploits. In this way, he was slyly carrying tales. In another case, an alcoholic was sent to a hospital for treatment. Only a few knew of it at first, but within a short time, it was billboarded throughout the entire company. Naturally, this sort of thing decreased the man's chance of recovery. The employer can many times protect the victim from this kind of talk. The employer cannot play favorites, but he can always defend a man from needless provocation and unfair criticism. So I've got that middle line highlighted, underlined, and starred. The greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. That's worth saying again. The greatest enemies of alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. And it's kind of going to come up again in a vision for you on that first page with the 4 horsemen. But we got to watch for these things. These are the things we watch throughout the day. I used to have these on a Post-it note because jealousy and envy, oh man, there I was, right? Always envious of things other people had. Envious of people who had more sobriety, more time, nicer things. It doesn't matter what area it is. Those are the things that are going to take us out. they're going to fester, they're going to grow, we're going to get resentments, and we're going to act in our defects, and we're going to sit in our fears. And man, oh man, those are things we want to watch for. And when we crop up, we want to talk to another person about them. You know, if you have a sponsor, do that. If you have a temporary sponsor, do that. If not, find yourself an AA buddy. I call him a 10-step buddy. And make sure that if you're watching for these things, and if you got to write it on a Post-it note, put it in the notes on your phone, make yourself a graphic on your home screen. We got to keep watch for these things. And of course, wherever men are gathered for business, there will be rivalries. That water cooler stuff. With ladies, it can be even worse because we gossip a little bit more than the men. The men are more the climb to the top of the pile, push you down as I go. Oh, the women are a little nastier. Let me tell you. We will stab you in the back and smile while we're doing it. And, you know, all those little undercutting things we do in the workplace. Gotta watch out for that. And at the bottom there, keeping confidence. If you are in a workplace and you know another member of your workplace is struggling, is in Alcoholics Anonymous, or going to treatment, you keep that confidence. But disclose yourself to that person, right? But we don't tell other people about it. And you know, when that's happening with other employees, man, oh man, the employer or the HR department should shut that down. Because talk about hindering our sobriety. Because then we get into that fight or flight where we want to defend our name and this and that and the other thing, and all these defects come up when we're put in a corner. So this page has a lot of red flags that we need to watch out for to protect our sobriety, protect ourselves, because these are the things that are going to block us from that sunlight of the spirit. Miss Emily O.
Hi, everybody. I'm Emily, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Emily.
Hi. I always, you know, the workplace is like the petri dish for actually utilizing the things I learn in this program, man. And I've worked in the restaurant business for like 20-something years, which is also a great pool to draw from for 12-step work, let me tell you. But there was a time within the last few years of my drinking, my big move was, you know, I would get trashed, I would get sick, I wouldn't come to work, I'd have to think of the excuses, the lies. But I remember this one time towards the end of my drinking, I just had no recourse. And, you know, I didn't show up to work, I didn't call, I didn't text. In the industry, we call that no call, no show. And it usually means you're done, right? But my boss started kind of like passive aggressively texting me, and I was just honest for maybe the first time. And I was like, I think I have a problem. I think I need to get out of the restaurant business. And he didn't fire me. You know, they welcomed me back. Of course, I don't think he was expecting me to say those things. And, you know, they didn't go too far beyond that to get me help or anything. But it just goes to show you that, you know, sometimes just being honest can lead you to a better thing, you know. And I have been guilty of, you know, I had one coworker in particular at that same job, and I knew he had problems because he was always drunk on the job, and I wasn't nice to him. And you know, people would talk a lot of stuff about him, and to this day I you know, I still feel ashamed about that. I did eventually see him in the rooms, and I pray for him today. I'm hoping he got the help he needed, and in the future I will behave differently for sure. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, Emily. Glad you're here. And just listening, I just thought I forgot to touch on that whole padding the expense account. There's a friend of mine in recovery who always talks. She worked for a cleaning company, and how hard it was for her to resist taking cleaning products home. You know, some of us may have in our employment stolen from work, various things, pens, office supplies. That's my jam. But some people may have stolen money or funds on their expense account. And those are things you do want to make right. That will be part of your step 9, making those things right. And not all employers are going to keep you on if you admit that you had been padding your expense account or stealing office equipment or stationery or pads of paper. I used to order my kids' school supplies on my order list. Yep, I did. And these are things you have to go back and make amends for. I just forgot to mention that when we were on the previous page. Amy B, who is also on my list to call back today.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Hi, ladies. Hi, Kimberly. So there's a couple things. Thank you, Kimberly, for starring and highlighting that spot, because I know for me, I have to be mindful and reminded, because I know those can creep up pretty easy. So that's definitely something I have to be aware of. And sometimes they creep up and, out of nowhere. So that's definitely something I have to be mindful. And the other thing is kind of the roles were reversed, but I do have experience as far as drinking on the workplace. Granted, this was years ago, but I was a nanny at the time, and I was sober. I had maybe 2 years, and I was taking care of 2 small children, and I went in the fridge, and I've gone in there plenty of times, and there was a beer, and I had relapsed on the job. So I reached out to people, because I knew that, for one, not a good situation to be with 2 kids drinking. And the next thought was, well, I got to replace their beers, because they're going to know. So I'm like, I should go to the liquor store and get more. And so I'm like, okay, I just need to get a 6-pack. I ended up getting a case. Luckily, I had friends in the program that came to my rescue. They came to the job, and one of the girls called the house, because I had used the house number, and she had left the message. This is so-and-so. I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. So my employer heard the message, and she didn't know that I was, sober, and she wanted to meet me the next day, and I said, okay. So we met the next day, and she kind of asked me some questions, and she said her father's sober, and so she had some experience with that, and she said, me and my husband wanted to send you to rehab, and we'll do anything it takes to help you. And she was more than helpful, and it totally surprised me, because I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought, I was expecting her to yell and whatever, but she wanted me back. She wanted to send me to rehab. And at the time, I knew that I wasn't ready to stop, so I just thanked her. And, so yeah, I guess the main thing is, I was a lot younger, but like Kimberly, like you said, it's so important for that, and to be working with a sponsor, and, just to talk to ladies and have someone you can talk to and go to. But yeah, it was so crazy that the roles were reversed, and that, I didn't even know her father, so anyways, that's my experience with the whole workplace situation.
Thanks so much, Amy. And yeah, with the whole Alcoholics Anonymous and God, expect the unexpected, because a lot of the time we are sitting there in our negative thinking and our stinking thinking, and it's going to turn out negative, and then we open our mouths, and the amazing and unexpected happens, where they're like, number one, they know. Like, really, the only one we're fooling is ourselves. They know what's going on. They've known for a while. You're just the last one to admit it. But 9 times out of 10, I've had amazing things happen where they know someone, or they've themselves been in recovery, or their wife, or their husband, or their daughter, or their dad, and they're like completely understanding when you actually tell the truth. It's quite remarkable how that happens. Terry S.
Hey, Kimberly, thank you so much. Thanks for the meeting. And just two things I just wanted to start with. So, hi, I'm Terry. I'm an alcoholic. My birthday was on Sunday, and I ushered in my birthday with 164 at midnight, and I ushered it out the following night at midnight. So that was just so cool. And I did share that I'd really rather be no place else. So it was really it was very cool. Secondly, I just celebrated 90 days on Monday, and it feels really good, but I still have a lot to learn. So this morning I woke up at like really an ungodly hour and couldn't go back to sleep. So I pulled out Living Sober. And just after reading 2 pages, I was able to just fall back asleep. And the thing that I read this morning was, we never let ourselves get so resentful towards somebody else that we allow that person to control our lives, especially to the extent of causing us to drink. We have found we have no desire to let any other person run or ruin our lives. And that kind of goes along with this part that you just read about the greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. So I was using a resentment toward my husband to keep drinking. And I realized in pandemic that that's what I was doing. So that's why I have 90 days now. And then so lots more work to be done there. I still need to get a local sponsor because I'm working with a sponsor, but they're in the UK. And that's lovely, but it's just timing wise, it's just not working out that great. And then lastly, when I was in my 20s, I had this temp job. And to this day, I don't know why I thought nothing of taking paper clips and taking their stapler. And I think I took something else too. But the stapler I still have. And I know I need to make amends for that. And I truly don't know what to do with it. But I stole it from my temp job when I was in college. And then the last thing I just want to say is that here's another thing I didn't think anything of at the time. About 10 years ago, there was a rep who I was very friendly with at my job. And I had students at the time. And she took us all out to lunch, and it wound up being a surprise birthday lunch for me. And I was in a really bad space about 10 years ago. I was really processing something really traumatic, but nobody at work really knew that, or they didn't know that I was still struggling with it. I just wound up drinking margaritas through the lunch on this rep. Why I didn't think anything was wrong with that in front of my students. The more I think about my behaviors, now at 90 days, the more I think about my behaviors, the more I qualified for my seat so long ago. But my awareness is here today, and it just wasn't there, at that time. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you so much. This being with women and having just a smaller group is actually helping me to share, because I actually I'm one of those people that hides behind my little picture and just kind of stays quiet. So I need to talk more. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the day I worked for a company and they were going out of business and they said, you can take anything you want off your desk. That was the best day of my life. I was just yeah, free office stuff. What the heck? Oh, Hazel. You got to hit your, there you go.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Hazel and I'm an alcoholic. This particular story in the big book definitely resonates with me as my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the things that you mentioned. For me, resentment and fear played a big part. I had the, blessings of, I just recently relinquished my employment from the railroad in December. And I have to tell you, when I went there, it was like going to the playground. I mean, everybody drank, you shot pool, you hung out. And basically my job enhanced my drinking in the beginning. And we didn't have, you mentioned earlier about, drug testing and stuff like that, which we didn't have. And so, it was about 9 months into this employment that they started the drug and alcohol testing, which inadvertently turned out to be a blessing. Because of my alcoholic behavior, I was random drug tested, and I was being made aware of it that at the end of my run, that's what would happen. And, the fear set in that, if I did not surrender and I became homeless, that the fear of being homeless was a big part in my decision, because I made an attempt to alternate my urine. But I thought about it and I was like, no, because by that time they had enacted the EAP and all these options. And I knew that as long as I complied with that I still would have my career. And even going to the next level, the counselor turned out to be a recovering alcoholic when I went in. And, coming out, I had no idea I was really alcoholic. I didn't know what Alcoholics Anonymous was about. All I knew was that I wanted to keep my job and that I had to go through whatever the structure was that they had implemented. And so for 3 years, you go through EAP and you're supposed to make meetings and stuff like that. And I went to meetings not really understanding what was going on, but I knew that I told myself that, okay, once the 3 years was up, that I could basically do what I want. But then on the other hand, knowing that I didn't want to lose my career, by that time I had embraced myself in Alcoholics Anonymous because with my job, I'm all over the place. And when they had said, get a home group and this kind of stuff there, I knew that if I waited until I got back home, that I would miss out on that. So one of the things that the program taught me, and I still to today, well, not that we can actually go to meetings, but I always carry the meeting list in my car. So whatever terminal or city or state that I ended up in, I always made a meeting, which also allowed me not to be afraid to go to different meetings. So I didn't have time to get to the clicks and all this kind of stuff. So with that, being able to make different meetings in different places, I got a lot of different information and stuff. And later on, the union boss wanted me to speak to other employees that had drinking problems and asked me if I minded, and I said no, and stuff like that. So, fast forward, I spent my whole sobriety journey with this one employer. And at the end, getting acclimates of, how I changed and things I did. But you also mentioned the money part, which at the time we used to collect a lot of money. And the rationalization was that if I was responsible for the money, I could use it as I see fit. That also caught up with me. But I say all that to say that, this particular story resonates with me so much because had it not been for this job and the implementation of EAP, who knows where I would have been. But I do know that it can be done if you just do. Well, when I came in, you didn't have choices. You did what you were told, and that was that. I had that tough love when I came in.
Thank you so much, Hazel. Gotta keep moving on. Suzanne, real quick before we continue reading.
Hey, I just wanted to say that when I got in touch with the BCTF, I was really lucky that AA had got in touch with me first, had gotten a hold of me, because had I got caught, I would have had to do drug testing for 2 years, and that would have killed my ego, which is already huge. So they said, you're in great hands. You're doing exactly what you need to do. Here's a yoga pass. That's all they had to offer, a yoga pass. But they sent me to AA. My doctor sent me to AA. Everybody, my church sent me to AA. This is the only place that can help the alcoholic, and everybody knows it. So we're in great hands here. So thank you.
Yes, and Joanne put an awesome idea in the chat. If you are like me and loves to steal office supplies from your employer, fill a backpack for a student.
Yes.
Great amends you can make, especially if it's an employer you're no longer employed with or has gone out of business. Great idea, Joanne. And I was going to add to what Suzanne said, come clean first to your employer before you go down the disciplinary hole. Like if you're already 2 strikes in, no need to get the 3rd strike because they're going to help you. So if you're new or coming back or still struggling and you have yet to be caught, so to stay at work, it's best to be proactive than to go down that rabbit hole and hit bottom and get in trouble. All right, let's carry on and see if we can't finish this chapter today. As a class, alcoholics are energetic people. They work hard and they play hard. Your man should be on his mettle to make good. Being somewhat weakened and faced with physical and mental readjustment to a life which knows no alcohol, he may overdo. You may have to curb his desire to work 16 hours a day. You may need to encourage him to play once in a while. He may wish to do for a lot of other alcoholics, and something of this sort may come up during business hours. A reasonable amount of latitude will be helpful. This work is necessary to maintain his sobriety. After your man has gone along without drinking for a few months, you may be able to make use of his services with other employees who are giving you the alcoholic runaround, provided, of course, they are willing to have a third party in the picture. An alcoholic who has recovered but holds a relatively unimportant job can talk to a man with a better position. Being on radically different basis of life, he will never take advantage of the situation. Your man may be trusted. Long experience with alcoholic excuses naturally arouses suspicion. When his wife next calls saying he is sick, you might jump onto the conclusion that he is drunk. If he is and is still trying to recover, he will tell you about it, even if it means the loss of his job. For he knows he must be honest if he would live at all. He will appreciate knowing you are not bothering your head about him, that you are not suspicious, nor are you trying to run his life, so he will be shielded from temptation to drink. If he is conscientiously following the program of recovery, he can go anywhere your business may call him. In case, we'll do the stumbling next. So yeah, we're energetic, all right. And once we get this program, as we've talked, sometimes we go to extremes where we dive into work and become workaholics, trying to fix our finances or keeping ourselves busy, or we dive right into service. One of two extremes is usually the case. It does help if you are in a position where you are employed and you are helping others to let your employer know. My employer was aware that I do sponsor women, and they knew that sometimes I had to step out and take a quick coffee break in order to take a call if someone was to call. I don't smoke cigarettes, so I didn't take cigarette breaks every 15, 20 minutes, and so I just kind of was able to justify it to my employer and said, you know, I don't step out very often. I don't take a coffee break, but I save them so that if I do need to step outside, I can take a call. And it was fine. I now am in a position where, you know, I work for myself and I'm able to, you know, do around my clock, except for days like now when I'm doing corporate taxes and I'm swamped. But normally I have a lot of free time and I'm able to make myself available. And then it talks about the alcoholic being able to be the man that can be referred to other alcoholics, giving you the runaround. You know, we can make ourselves useful to our employees, to our employers, to help other employees that are still struggling. So the way we can carry this message in all of our affairs. You know, there's something about that in the book somewhere. We carry this message in all of our affairs. We can practice these principles in all of our affairs. So we can do that at our workplace, in our home place, and in our recovery rooms. We can call on a man that is of a better position, because we're not trying to get favors for this. We don't try to get any remuneration for our work in recovery. We give this away freely. It's not, I'm going to help this guy and hope I get the position over someone else. We just freely give this away like it was given to us. All right, Regina, good morning.
Hi, everyone. I'm Regina. I'm an alcoholic. I love this chapter, and you know, I love it because I was 12-stepped by a manager, and she knew that I had a drinking problem because I was the one that was like calling her. My friends and I would go out, and we would call her office while we were out and leave these ridiculous messages, and then she would call us into her office and be like making a joke out of it, and like, oh, listen to what you guys were doing over the weekend. And, you know, I'd sit there and I'd wonder why I wasn't getting promoted or why I wasn't getting additional responsibility. And, you know, she planted the seed for me, and she asked me if I was willing to go to any lengths, because when I came into her office after I hit my bottom, she was like, she had been hearing it. She'd been hearing everything about like what I was doing because I didn't have any boundaries. I was telling her all about all of my drinking escapades because I knew that she didn't drink. And when she said, "Are you willing to go to any lengths?" I remember thinking I was scared, and I was like, "Okay, I'll do whatever you say." And she took me to a meeting, so she knew. And I stayed. I went to a meeting. I went to my first meeting, and then I didn't go back for 3 years. But in those 3 years, I worked for her, and so by the time I hit my real bottom, I knew where to go, and I went to meetings, and it stuck. So then she knew at lunchtime I would go to a lunchtime meeting every day, and she knew that that's where I was going. She knew that I was going to probably be an hour and 15 minutes, and she was very understanding and very approachable about everything. And I learned so much about the importance of being the only version of the big book that anybody will ever see. And it was so profound to me, like just thinking back, that was like 27 years ago. And she is still in my life. I still hear from her on my anniversary. And, she showed me the importance of, giving this program away. And, when I read this chapter and I think about all the other people that I've come across in my career, I remember one of my managers knew that I didn't drink, didn't know that I was in AA, but knew that I didn't drink. And he would refer me to people that were having issues with, coming back to the office drunk or not showing up because they were hungover. He would just ask me, can you just talk to them and see if they're okay? And all those conversations ended up, either the person was either willing to take a suggestion or they didn't want to hear about it. And it was an interesting experience for me because, I can only give it away if somebody wants it. And the only thing I can explain to people is how, the disease progressed in me and what worked for me. And some people are willing to hear it and some people aren't. So, but it's important for me to remain neutral and not be judgmental or critical and just be understanding and know where these people are coming from so that I might be able to help them. And I always think about the way that this manager of mine approached me. She didn't shove anything down my throat. She wasn't preaching to me. She was actually laughing along with me as I would talk about my escapades. But then she started to open up about the things that she did when she was drinking, and it was always in past tense. And I always remembered that. And sometimes, in work situations, I come across people that I work in an industry where there's just a lot of drinking, and if you're not drinking, you're like the odd man out, and everybody's like, infatuated with the fact that you don't drink, and they want to know why and how long. And I just try to keep it light. And inevitably, I get calls from people days later. Hey, tell me a little bit more about how you do that. I'm interested. So you never know who you're going to help as long as you remain open. So thanks.
Absolutely. I have a former coworker. She still pops up every once in a while. And the strangest is my former dial purchase. I've 12-stepped her. Joanne. Good morning.
I am Joanne. I'm an alcoholic addict. My experience has been a little bit different. When I was first getting sober, my boss, I don't know what her problem was, but at Christmas time, she'd give me a bottle of wine, and I said, I don't drink. And she goes, I know. And so, I'm very careful about my anonymity and my program. But what I have done, and I have to be careful, and I usually run it by somebody else before I take any actions, kind of assess the situation. But one of the things that I've done is I will address it to someone that I care about, that I work with, as I have family members, which is true. I have family members who struggle with alcoholism, and I know about AA, and if you would ever want to go to a meeting, where you could find some people to talk to, then I'm more than willing to do that. I've just found that in theory, it's all great, but sometimes you have to really see the players around you, because what's also hard is to, and I actually did this once, where you kind of really have that social intimacy and you share all this stuff, and the person gets like a month and then says, no, this is not what I want, but then starts talking to other people, and so I trust women in the program. I really don't trust a whole lot of women outside of the program, and I have to make them really work for my trust before I put my heart, my sleeve of my program out there. So, but there's always bounds, and before I do it, I just run it by somebody. I'm thinking of doing this, and just get it outside of my head and take an honest look at what am I doing, why am I doing it, what's my motive, what's my investment. And the other thing I wanted to share is that I had a career change and I ended up working with children, and it is very difficult when a drunk parent shows up to claim their child, and you have to say, let me call your partner, let me call your wife or whatever. And I had one instance where months later, one of the parents showed up at a meeting where I was at. And I went over and I said, if you have any concerns about your child, I've been sober for a while. And so it gets a little complicated. But we are always able to say, I know a place, and if you want to do something, if you want to do something about your drinking, I'm more than willing to take you there, and just keep it really simple. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. And for a lot of alcoholics is a lot of the time after we do recover, we change careers because whatever we were doing before, it doesn't feel right anymore, or it's not the right environment. I worked at corporate finance for so many years, and it was so toxic and so stressful, and it wasn't conducive to me. And I know what you mean about the parenting. Summer had a little friend at school, and that mom was still suffering very badly. And I just made friends with the mom. Said, hey, if you ever want a play date or a sleepover, I'll gladly take your child, because I know my house is a safe place, and I know what my house used to be like on the weekends. And that mom used to let us take that little girl for sleepovers on the weekend. And we don't hear from them anymore. They've disappeared, and we just pray for them and hope that they're okay. Lee.
Hi, I'm Lee, and I'm an alcoholic. It's the first time I've ever raised my hand in a meeting. I was thinking to myself about the getting busy part of the reading that you just did, and what came to mind was the age of the book, and to update it a little bit, I thought about how busy we get going to Zoom. And I hear people talking about, I did 5 meetings today, or I did 7 meetings today, and I was thinking that that's a real busy part of protecting our sobriety, which is a good thing. And I also have heard people talking about being at work when they're actually in the Zoom call and they get asked to share. And I wondered to myself if any of us had, I wondered 2 things. First of all, does the employer know that that's there and is happening, and they feel good about it, that you're phoning? And have we ever thought of that as sort of that there might have to be an amends down the line because we're stealing their time? So it just occurred to me, the whole scenario. So that's what was running through my head. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Time theft. Huge. Time theft is huge. We don't even think of it. But it depends on your employer. Like, a lot of people just listen in, and if you have a job that's okay. I used to listen to the radio, and I would win call-in tickets, and then I'd come out of my office. I'm like, I just won Madonna tickets on the radio. It's like, what are you doing in your office all day? Oh, yeah, whoopsies. But yeah, right. A lot of people do put just listening when they are sitting in Zoom meetings, or they're listening in on their lunch. I used to be a non-taker luncher person. So yeah, time theft is one too we have to consider in amends as well. Thanks, Lee. All right. Back to 147 in case anybody's lost page. In case he does stumble even once, you will have to decide whether to let him go. If you are sure he doesn't mean business, there is now no doubt you should discharge him. If, on the contrary, you are sure he is doing his utmost, you may wish to give him another chance. but you should feel under no obligation to keep him on, for your obligation has been well discharged already. There is another thing you might wish to do. If your organization is a large one, your junior executives might be provided with this book. You might let them know you have no quarrel with the alcoholics of your organization. These juniors are often in a difficult position. Men under them are frequently their friends. For one reason or another, they cover these men, hoping matters will take a turn for the better. They often jeopardize their own positions by trying to help serious drinkers who should have been fired long ago, or else given an opportunity to get well. After reading this book, a junior executive can go to such a man and say approximately this: "Look here, Ed, do you want to stop drinking or not? You put me on the spot every time you get drunk. It isn't fair to me or the firm. I've been learning something about alcoholism. If you are an alcoholic, you are a mighty sick man. You act like one. The firm wants to help you get over it, and if you are interested, there is a way out. If you take it, your past will be forgotten, and the fact that you went away for treatment will not be mentioned. But if you cannot or will not stop drinking, you ought to resign." I like that sentence. We can use that one a lot. We can change it up a little bit. Be like, "Look here, Betty Lou Who. Do you want to stop drinking or not? You put me on the spot every time you get drunk." We can leave that one out because we don't know her. It isn't fair. I have learned something of alcoholism. If you are an alcoholic, you are a mighty sick gal. You act like one from what I've heard you share. The AAs here, we want to help you get over it. And if you're interested, there's a way out. Right? Like we can take some of these lines and we can use them again. My favorite is, "Are you done? Because I can help." Like we got a solution. Like, come on now. But talking about relapse, right? It depends on to the extent. You know, if someone is out of their workplace and you know, one night they go and drink and they immediately get back into Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, there's one case. If the gentleman comes to work drunk, that's a completely different story, right? So there's lots of different extremes here that we don't know. But you know, often you've already run out of chances. If you're at this page in the to the employers and you've, you know, been sent to treatment, you might have been strikes 1, 2, and 3, and now you're on your final shot. We're sending you to treatment, Betty Lou Who. If you don't get it, you're done, and then you come out of treatment and you relapse. Like, how many more chances do you think you're going to get here with this employer? They're coming to the end of the rope. But yeah, I like that last paragraph. You done yet? You want what we have? Anything on that? Should we try to finish the next page and a half? Get her done? Yes? All right, let's keep going. Your junior executive may not agree with the contents of our book. He need not and often should not show it to his alcoholic prospect. But at least he will understand the problem and will no longer be misled by ordinary promises. He will be able to take such a position with such a man which is eminently fair and square. He will have no further reason for covering up an alcoholic employee. It boils right down to this: no man should be fired just because he is alcoholic. If he wants to stop, he should be afforded a real chance. If he cannot or does not want to stop, he should be discharged. The exceptions are few. We think this method of approach will accomplish several things. It will permit the rehabilitation of good men. At the same time, you will feel no reluctance to rid yourself of those who cannot or will not stop. Alcoholism may be causing your organization considerable damage in its waste of time, men, and reputation. We hope our suggestions will help you plug up this sometimes serious leak. We think we are sensible when we urge that you stop this waste and give your worthwhile man a chance. The other day, an approach was made to the vice president of a large industrial concern. He remarked, "I'm mighty glad you fellows got over your drinking, but the policy of this company is to not interfere with the habits of our employees. If a man drinks so much that his job suffers, we fire him. I don't see how you can be of any help for us. As you see, we don't have any alcoholic problem." This same company spends millions for research every year. Their cost of production is figured to a fine decimal point. They have recreational facilities. There is company insurance. There is a real interest, both humanitarian and business, in the well-being of employees. But alcoholism, well, they just don't believe they have it. Perhaps this is a typical attitude. We, who have collectively seen a great deal of business life, at least from the alcoholic angle, had to smile at this gentleman's sincere opinion. He might be shocked that if he knew how much alcoholism is costing his organization a year. The company that may harbor many actual or potential alcoholics. We believe that managers of large enterprises often have little idea of how prevalent this problem is. Even if you feel your organization has no alcoholic problem, it may pay to take another look down the line. You may make some interesting discoveries. So in that, as someone who worked in human resources, I can tell you, if you're firing everyone who appears to have a problem, you're wasting a lot of resources in your payroll and admin department, because the hiring and firing of people actually costs some time and money. And you could set yourself up to get into some hot water, especially now with all the labor relations boards, if you're hiring and firing without cause. Just because someone drinks in the recreational time doesn't mean they're alcoholic if it's not affecting their work. But I love how it talks there. No man should be fired just because he's alcoholic. If he wants to stop, he should be afforded a real chance. And then it says if he cannot or does not want to stop, he should be discharged. So that speaks of who should and shouldn't be fired and who should and shouldn't be given a chance. And you can tell someone who's really trying and someone who's not really trying. Once you've been in this for a little bit, you can see who wants it and who doesn't and where they're going to go with it. But yeah, it's so prevalent in every workplace. We can spot it from a mile away, being here and being alcoholics in the solution. But, for someone to say, we don't have a problem here, but there is some I lost my train of thought. Anybody want to speak on this page? It was wow. Okay, let's finish it off. Of course, this chapter refers to alcoholics, sick people, deranged men. What our friend, the vice president, had in mind was the habitual or whoopee drinker. As to them, his policy is undoubtedly sound, but he did not distinguish between such people and the alcoholic. It is not to be expected that an alcoholic employee will receive a disappropriate amount of time and attention. He should not be made a favorite. The right kind of man, the kind who recovers, will not want this sort of thing. He will not impose. Far from it. He will work like the devil and thank you till his dying day. Today I own a little company. There are 2 alcoholic employees who produce as much as 5 normal salesmen. But why not? They have a new attitude and they have been saved from a living death. I have enjoyed every moment spent in getting them straightened out. And then Appendix 6, we shall be happy to hear from you if we can be of help. So that's speaking to the employer. Feel free if you are an employer, and you want to connect your employees to Alcoholics Anonymous. Of course, we do that. The PI, the CPCPI is, a great committee for that. It connects AA to professionals. Doesn't have to be specifically doctors. It can be anyone. Our PI goes all over. CPCPI. Cooperation with the professional. Someone else better than I am with.
Institution.
Thank you. They also go to schools. We go to fire halls. We go to police stations. big corporations. You can go anywhere. And Joanne.
Yeah, I just want to make a point, or at least an observation, that the first, word in the 12 steps is we. And when you do a 12-step call, you never do it alone. And that service has those committees that will work with outside entities. And I have literally experienced crazy ass alcoholics not ready to get sober be fired and cause physical damage on their way out. I mean, like lighting the building on fire, picking out cars, trashing them. Oh my God. Some people just don't want to drink and they don't want to be fired. And so there is companies they have their HR departments, they have their protocols, they have their laws and everything. So what I have been humbled to believe is when you think you might, think about the we, so that you don't do this alone, because there are repercussions that you might not even expect. And I have been humbled at how cunning, baffling, powerful this disease is, and how people are really crazy when they're trying to get 12 stepped, and how they will act out. Not to say don't try, but try to look around and figure out how it can be a we and not just you. That's all I wanted to share. Thanks.
Yeah, and we have a safety card too. And so yes, Alcoholics Anonymous is anonymous, but when it comes to any physical violence or crimes being committed against our members, an anonymity doesn't matter if someone has assaulted you. We call the proper authorities. I don't know if everyone has that safety card, if it's just in our area. Yes, they do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I've gone on 12-step calls with someone and we've brought paramedics and police because of the conversations we've had, not only for our safety, but for the safety of the alcoholic we're going to visit. Because sometimes these people can be very suicidal. And you can sum that up, and it's okay to bring proper authority or care with you, because some people they're very close to committing suicide, and you don't know if they're going to harm you when you arrive there, and that's not every case. But I have had a situation where we did have to bring police and ambulance with us to a 12-step call, and it was we needed it there 100% when we arrived with what we found. So, all right. Let's stop the